Hey, welcome back to the Kayak Bass Connection podcast. I'm your host, Jared. Hey, this is episode 50. Finally made it to the big 50. So we got a really special episode planned for you tonight. We are still the official podcast of the Southern Illinois Kayak Club Tournament Trail. In Illinois right now, we are undergoing a blizzard. I think it's supposed to get down to -6 tonight. And so it's only fitting that we switch to the West Coast of the United States, where it is a one heck of a lot warmer. My guest today from California is Mr. Max Lee. Max, thanks so much for taking time to meet with us tonight.
Thanks for having me. Hopefully, I can talk you guys out of the snow.
Yeah, we got a month or so, I think, until we have some nice kayaking weather anyway. But I'm anxious to just get to know you a little bit more and kind of learn about what the kayak scene is like more in California. I have to tell listeners, Max is such a great guy. I just sent him a cold message on Facebook, and he agreed to be on the podcast after reading a little article on one fish that he caught. But I know there's a lot more stories to tell than just that one fish. It looks like are you in the California Delta area then, Max?
Yeah, basically central California. Yeah, it kind of runs, we consider like LA down to San Diego towards the border, Southern California, and then from Sacramento-ish to Redding, Clear Lake kind of area. That's kind of like Northern California, and then kind of central.
Okay.
The both.
So you got a lot of good fishable water. What's your typical drive that you have to take to get to good ground fish?
For me, the closest lake to me is about 45-ish minutes.
Okay.
For the most part, though, I mean, it's because the state is such a straight up and down state. You gotta go either straight up or you gotta go either straight down to get to bodies of water.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, so I mean, it's typically like a 2-hour drive to tournaments, 4-hour drives to tournaments.
Well, now, what type of tournament trails do you usually follow?
Well, I mean, I follow everything.
Okay.
Specifically on the kayak side, because the Southern California side of it's so far for the kayak side, I follow them as well, but I just don't make it down to fish the Southern California stuff. So I stay in the central region and the northern region basically, because it's give or take about 2 to about 4 hours of a drive for me. So
yeah, that's Illinois is kind of the same. It's actually a very large state. It's 8 hours drive from one side to the other, or one end to the other. And a lot of the tournaments in our tournament trail are at least the closest to home is about an hour and a half, and then all the way to 4.5 hours from where I'm at. And I'm in the central part of the state. It's a big stretch of some of these tournaments. So how did you get started just in the kayak angling, Max?
So the start in kayak angling for me, it really happened when I used to live in Southern California, and I used to fish in a belly boat or a float tube. Yeah, some guys may know it. And so, at the time, that's what I couldn't afford. That's what I could, storage wise, that's how I was able to store, watercraft in essence. And so, when I left Southern California, give or take about 5 years ago, then that's when I got into kayak. I was able to have more space. The funds kind of let up a little bit, and that's basically when I started, which by freak chance was also right around the COVID time. And so
yeah, when everybody was trying to buy kayaks.
Yeah. And so, I've been fishing for a long time before that, but that's really where I made the switch over to kayak side. Honestly, I probably could have gone boat during the time before the switch too, but realistically, the funds wouldn't allow it. Didn't want to pay for extra gas to pump.
Yeah.
The whole maintenance deal with a boat, obviously.
Oh yeah. I think there's a lot of people, including myself, that's the reason they're in kayaks today. It's just smaller footprint, easier to maintain, less expensive, and still enjoy some good fishing.
Yeah, and I don't know what the gas prices are out there, but I mean, during the time period when I was going to make the switch, it was like $4 a gallon, $5 a gallon. I don't want to.
Yeah, ours. In a boat. Yeah, ours aren't much behind you.
Yeah,
back some time ago, they were approaching $4 or over $4 a gallon. A lot of times I see guys pulling up, they're in their Ranger bass boats at the gas station. I just, ooh.
Yeah, a 26-gallon tank, a 30-gallon tank. It's a lot of gas to fill a boat. So
So it seems like you, at least at this point in your journey, you developed quite a reputation for catching huge largemouth bass, which we can talk about that here in a little bit. How was kind of your evolution? Did you just start bass fishing, or was there something else that kind of started you in your angling experience?
So growing up, used to fish a lot of the local lakes in Southern California. And I had no like mentor of any way, shape, or form. It was more so, I would watch the Bassmasters, I would watch the elites, FLWs, and so on and so forth. And I didn't want to get on that platform per se because I was never a tournament angler. I just wanted to figure out how to catch fish, honestly. And so one day I was watching. This was back in the days of when side scan was the big craze and guys were hating side scan, but the big thing was dragging a football jig,
Yeah.
and offshore fishing and summertime fishing offshore, and that's really where I kicked from just traditional bank beating, just going on the
Mm-hmm.
bank and just kind of fishing a drop shot, Texas rig. I started making my own football jigs, which I no longer do because it's a lot of work and I want to fish more. But
Mm-hmm.
that was like the first real big like evolution to my fishing because as everybody knows, you start fishing a jig, the quality of your bites typically go up.
The number of bites go down, but the fish get bigger.
Yeah. And so I started bank beating with a jig, fishing football jigs specifically, kind of dialed that down from the bank, where to throw it, the hard spots and, rock piles and such, the bushes. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, that's really where I kind of grew until now, really. It just kind of, the journey just continued. And even now, it still continues. I'm nowhere near what I would call myself proficient. So,
Well, I don't know. You seem to be doing okay. I saw a picture of a 16-pound bass. I've seen pictures of 10s, 12s, things like that on some of your social media. You're definitely doing something right. So, what is your main structure that you're throwing jigs in there? I mean, do you have much grass where you're fishing at, or do you have a lot of rock or a combination?
yeah. So, typically on the it kind of just depends on the body of water. For me personally, I really like to fish lowland reservoirs.
Okay.
And so typically I like targeting those unknown hard spots, those really small, say a 1 by 1 spot where it's just a single hard patch where those fish would be set up on. I mean, I can fish a football jig so many different ways, stroking a heavy football jig, flipping a jig in wood. Sometimes I'll flip a football jig over a flipping jig just so I could hang the
Really?
head on the limb of the wood. So
Oh, okay.
yeah, yeah, not
Yeah.
always, but yeah,
I really thought you were going to tell me that your lakes were a lot different out there, and really what you're describing could be any of the lakes that we fish
yeah,
here in Illinois. I mean, we've got obviously it's a pretty flat terrain here, so we've got a lot of lowland reservoirs as well.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, I typically don't get a fish grass much. I'll go to the Delta a couple times a year, California Delta.
Mm-hmm.
But typically the lakes I stay around are either lowland or highland reservoirs. Anywhere just about anywhere you think a fish would be, I would fish a jig on there. The only thing I tend to stay away from is riprap because riprap is really tough on jigs.
Yeah, yeah, they'll
Yeah,
steal a few of them. Yeah, really quick. Well, it's interesting. Just on the podcast here, about a little over a year ago, we did a jig special. A couple of our anglers that have had a lot of tournament success came on and just kind of spilled their guts about how what they're doing, what's been successful for them. And so last year, I tried to use a jig a lot more, and I'm going to continue to try to do that. But it is fascinating, though. It's just like a whole. It's just you could have a master class and spend years and years and years and just learn how to do that.
oh yeah. I mean, I think that goes with just about any lure in bass fishing, honestly, and that's really why eats up so much of my time because I work a 9 to 5, and then
Yeah.
I get so many hours during the weekend to go fish, and so you could go from fishing a jig, a football jig like a wobblehead, to just swim in it sometimes.
Do you say a wobblehead, like a wobblehead football jig? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes I'll fish like that too on hard spots. Say if I don't, because we're in a kayak, right? Say I don't have any wobble heads. I'll just take a football jig and I'll throw it out there and I'll just wind down the bottom and just bump it on the bottom, just like a crankbait or a wobble.
Oh yeah.
It doesn't always work the best simply because it's a big profile, but it does work sometimes too. You know, in the times of a substitute when I don't
Okay.
have one. So
Now, what is the primary forage species in those waters? For us, it's like shad, bluegill, and crawfish.
yeah, so for around me, it's all your panfish, you know, all your panfish. The shad in certain lakes, some lakes don't have shad. Obviously, the big one everybody knows, California, you know, a
Mm.
trout imitator. That's a real big one. No secret there. Clear Lake, the hitches, but the shad stuff wise, they're mainly
Yeah.
threadfins. Every now and then there are some lakes with American shad, which is a really giant shad. It's about the same size as a gizzard shad, you would say.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
We've
so,
got both here. Now, you have developed that reputation of kind of being a big bass guy. Do you think it's because of the reservoirs or the locations you're fishing, or just because the bait you're fishing, or what contributes to those heavy fish that you take out of the water?
I mean, honestly, it really comes down to genetics. I mean, we're seeing it a lot. You know, the Texas Shearlunker
Okay.
program. We're very blessed. I'm not gonna say it any other way because that's just the truth. We're very
Yeah.
fortunate to be in a state or an area where there's a bountiful amount of big ones. So
You get that long growing season.
yeah, and
Yeah.
so you know, it's the weather, it's the genetics. Because realistically, I feel like the lakes, you know, Midwest and towards the east more in terms of like forage. I feel
Mhm.
like you guys have more forage than we do in terms of actual feeding forage for the
Oh, really?
bass. Yeah,
Yeah, we do. Some of the lakes we fish are just full of life. I mean, it's just amazing. It's kind of a problem because when bass have so many different things to eat, it's kind of hard to get them convince them to eat what you need them to.
yeah, and that is one thing I've noticed over the years of my fishing is typically when you have those die offs, right, when there's too much shad, and you have a lot of the more bait you have, typically the more smaller fish you have. It's just an observation. I'm not
Hmm.
a scientist or anything.
Yeah,
Simply because it's easier for those small fish to survive. I think is the best way to say it.
yeah, that
And
makes sense.
so yeah, and so when you have a bountiful amount of bait or you know a bountiful amount of forage, you know you get more small fish growing because it's easier for them to grow. Whereas lakes that have a lack of forage, not
Hmm.
not a big lack, but just a limited amount of forage, it seems like the survival of the fittest mentality or genetics kind of kick in, and the
Yeah,
bigger ones survive
yeah,
longer.
yeah. They end up taking up the best habitat and they have the best food source, and they just get big. So your largemouth. And excuse my stupidity. I don't know anything about California to speak of. So your largemouth there, would they be equivalent to like the Florida strain everybody talks about that gets so big?
Yeah, yeah,
Actual Florida strain bass have been transplanted, you think,
yeah. So
or genetically?
so way back in the day, um, I'm very bad with the names, but the
Hmm.
history behind it is a Southern California San Diego mayor, I believe it was. Don't quote me on it. I don't
Hmm.
know the facts, but he essentially they did the whole transplant deal. So they got the F1s, they got the Florida strains,
Okay.
and they transplant them into the San Diego lakes, and that's when you see that really big stringer of 20-pound class fish that are on
Okay.
trout, and that's really when that whole ordeal happened. And so it was never really like originally California fish. Technically, it was transplanted fish from Florida, and that just it kind of became a happy mix.
Yeah, they
And
created a
so,
fishery that wasn't there before, right?
yeah, correct.
That's really neat.
Yeah. So,
Amazing. I wonder how many years ago that was. But I mean, think about the economic impact that had, downstream where we're at
yeah,
today.
yeah. So it was amazing. I mean, I believe their very first lake that it was a part of the program was Otay, a lower Otay down in California, and so they shut the lake off. They put those fish in, they fed those fish, they grew those fish, and then from there they finally opened it up and they continue to expand. And that's kind of
Hmm.
really where it started. The lakes here, even in the Central Valley, had F1s. Stockton, Florida strain Stockton, and so a lot of it is genetics from Florida. So,
That helps. And you said trout too. Do they stock trout there?
yeah, so the trout stocking thing is it's a yearly thing. Once the weather starts cooling off, they stock trout.
Yeah,
For bank guys to go catch and have fun, basically.
yeah, they do it in Illinois too. They don't generally don't survive very long in the spring, but yeah, it's just a
Yeah, so
short term.
yeah, so every about October, Thanksgiving ish kind of time,
Mm-hmm.
they start planting trout, and then once it starts turning and it gets warming, the warming trends start happening again. They stop stocking. But yeah, and then there's also lakes here that have a natural kokanee, and
Yeah, I've
so.
heard of that. Yeah.
Mhm.
See that I've never fished anything like that, especially out of a kayak. And what I've seen from YouTube videos, a lot of trolling and stuff. That'd be fun.
And right now it's kokanee season.
Oh, it is.
Yeah, yeah.
In Illinois, it's cold season. It's frozen water season. Is what it is.
It's no fishing season.
Yeah, yeah. Now I'm fortunate enough. I live right next to a plant or a nuclear power plant that has a lake with it. So most of it is not frozen. Surprisingly, like yesterday, driving around some of the coves and stuff that hardly ever get frozen, they're frozen solid. Nice sheet of ice on the top of them. So we don't do a lot of ice fishing here, but it's certainly been cold lately. So what's the fishing pressure like in your typical mid California impoundments?
It's, in my opinion, I think it's pretty bad.
That's what I've always heard. That's really tough.
Yeah, and I think what I mean by bad and what a lot of people don't really translate is the lakes here in California aren't exactly ginormous. They're not really big lakes. You don't
Okay.
have a lot of backwater creek channels and such. A lot of it's very community hole-ish. So there's a lot of areas that everybody knows and everybody
Mm,
fishes. And so
okay.
that's what that's where the pressure comes from. In terms of fishing, like the fishery itself, they're great. It's just the community whole aspect of it makes them, pressure. So
Okay.
yeah,
So you got the anglers concentrating on small spots on not big bodies of water anyway.
yeah. Like the best example I can give is Clear Lake. It's no secret,
Mm-hmm.
when the spring happens, which is going to happen pretty soon here, those bass start moving to the back of the creek channels and start spawning. And so all the community holes become the mouth of creek channels. And so they're
Mm-hmm.
waiting for those fish to continue to go in and out of the creek channels,
Mm-hmm.
to spawn, post spawn, and such. So everybody's sitting in front of X amount of creek channels. And that's.
Yeah, I watched one of your YouTube videos, and it said something. You were talking to the camera. I thought that was really interesting what you said. You said there's everybody's over in this cove right there fishing. That's probably where the fish should be, but I don't want to fish where those people are, so I'm going to find some fish. I like that attitude. You're trying to find something nobody else has latched onto.
Yeah, I mean, that's just how I tournament fish. I don't like being with the crowd. I like to be off on my own, doing my own thing, even if it's not the winning pattern. I like to find my own fish, just because I don't want to get into any confrontations with anybody. I'm just
Yeah,
out here fishing, so I don't want to. I'll stay away from the area where I know it's going to be one, just so I can go have my own peace.
yeah. There's something to be said about that.
Yeah.
And we're really blessed, at least in our club. I mean, I've never seen two people get cross in our club about fishing next to each other in a tournament. Definitely some of the boat tournaments we have here, people get pretty testy. Yeah, I agree with you. I like being. That's one of the reasons I like fishing. It's just me in the water, and
Yeah.
I always tell when people look at my kayak, they're like, "You fish out of that?" I'm like, "Hey, it's got room for me and all my friends." So it's a nice and quiet, quiet day. So with a lot of fishing pressure concentrated in a small area, is that one of the things that caused you to just concentrate on a jig a lot because people weren't throwing that, or
No, during the time, it's just a learning progression.
okay,
Honestly, throughout the years, I've gotten really bad. And what I mean by really bad is I'll go to the lake and I'll go fish and I'll see how fish react, whether it's on live scope or I see some change in the water. I see bait dying, crappie dying or something, and they start floating or something. Then my mind automatically goes to, well, what can I do to make it look natural in this situation? And so typically through the years past, I've been really bad about trying a lot of baits.
That's where I'm at right now, Max. And I'm gonna help me, please. I'm trying to focus.
Yeah.
I find myself changing baits way too much.
Yeah, so I've spent a lot of time after fishing just a jig kind of messing around with everything, whether it be a trap, a drop shot, the fuzzy dices, the whole live scope deal, everything from the big swim baits down. And tournament fishing has like really accelerated that for me, the learning curve of when and where to fish, because in our scene, it kind of goes into our scene of our kayak scene. If you go in and you ask the guys that how you caught them, they're really open to give up information on how they caught them. They'll tell you how they caught them, whether what technique it may be. I typically don't ask them where. I just ask them, how did you catch them, on what bait, and then I'll go and figure it out tomorrow or on another bait that's similar.
Yeah, I have to say 9 out of 10 of our people are probably the same. Yeah.
So that's typically how it goes out here in California. A lot of guys are open arms. If they win, they're like, well, I won it throwing a Cinco. What colors? Yeah. Green pumpkin Cinco. Yeah.
Yeah. How many times have we heard that? What'd you win on? Green pumpkin Cinco.
Yeah.
Hey, doing that. Chatterbaits are like the number one bait here for tournament winnings. I just did a little podcast where we looked at the last. I think I've done interviews on 17 of our club tournaments, and breaking those down. The chatterbait was an enrolled.
Just curious on that. Fishing in grass or just open water?
I think it's mostly open water. No, I'm sorry, mostly grass and weed edges. Because we, especially in our tournaments that are late spring to early fall tournaments, and there's just tons of grass in a lot of the places we fish. So they're very, very oriented toward the grass. It seems like.
Yeah.
But we have like another class of guys that were winners a lot that sort of remind me what you're talking about. They're like offshore jig guys, so we have guys beating a bank and some guys, offshore fishing. So you mentioned live scope. We just did a live scope roundtable that was really interesting. We found out different people were using it for different things. So what has your experience been with this new tool?
I use it as an efficiency tool. I don't get a lot of time to fish, so
yeah,
I get 2 days out of the week to fish. So the big thing for me is getting to the water and figuring out what the fish are doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
sometimes I don't use it, typically because sometimes I'm going to, say, the Delta where I'm fishing grass, and so I don't need to use it typically.
Okay.
There I'm just power fishing. But the tool itself, I think it gets frowned upon too much. The tool itself, it's not really the end all do all that a lot of people are making it out to be.
It's not the easy button.
Yeah. I really wish it was. I would have caught so many more 10-pounders.
Yeah.
But the truth of it's not the end all be all.
Yeah. I mean, I know here it's almost, it's not quite the standard for tournaments, but it's like I expect this year, I bet half the people will have live scope.
Yeah. So I don't know what's going to happen this year, but in the years prior, for us, live scope really hit in 2024. The tail end of 2023 was when it really started taking off, and then 2024 was when it really kind of blew up for us. And so 2024, 2025, kind of the whole minnow deal, shaking for isolated floaters, that became a really big deal here in California. I don't know what's going to happen this year. The fishing pressure on the fish have gotten to them. And so, like on my lake, my local lake that I fish a lot, there's a certain time window when if it's past their feeding window and you get close to them with the beam, they'll just start swimming away, and you will not get them to turn or react on anything. And that's up to 130 foot. And so, anybody that has used live scope understands how far of a cast that is and how just about impossible it is to make that cast. And so
becoming a bit conditioned to it.
Yeah, so I don't know what's going to happen in the future.
Mm-hmm.
And then the structure fish, I use it to fish for structure fish a lot too. There's a certain angle on the cone itself to where if you pan it just perfectly right, you'll see the fish slithering on the bottom that you wouldn't see if there was a really bright return on the bottom on your live scope. And so it's kind of like, it's not talked about as a lot, but you could see those bottom structure fish without actually seeing them on live scope.
You can see them without actually seeing them. I believe you 100%. So they're like they don't look like other fish on live scope. Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah. So like say for example, when you pan onto a hard spot or say a ledge, let's say a ledge, there's a certain angle to where you could pan it and you can still kind of see the ledge, but you also be able to see the separations of the fish going down the ledge. And so you don't always see them because they're not always there, but when you hit the right angle, you actually see those fish stacked up down on the ledge without actually being a really bright return.
Yeah. What type of electronics do you like to run?
I run the Garmin.
Okay.
LV.
All right. Well, I thought that on a couple of your videos, I thought they looked like Garmin. So I had a question for you. You have like a shield, like a sun shield on one of them?
Yes.
Where did you get that? I have been trying to find a good sun shield.
So Burley Pro. Burley Pro is the name of the company.
Yeah,
they make it basically. I believe they do it for all of them, all the Garmins, the Lorances as well. I don't think they do it for the GPS map, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, I always just hating the sunlight. You're draining your batteries because you're got the thing cranked up. You can't see it as well. And I tried to rig a couple things, it just hasn't worked.
Yeah, and then when the sun hits at the wrong angle, there's a glare on it all the time, and you can't make that cast.
Yeah, of course. I don't have live scope, but yeah, it's I like using the side scan a lot, and sometimes the angle hits it and washes everything out for me. So let's talk about some of these big old monster bass that you've kind of made a reputation for hauling in. Is there anyone? I know the biggest one that is probably is that the 16-pounder that I saw online there?
That would be the biggest. Is
16. So tell us about that story. How'd that come about?
It really started the whole work of leading up to that fish started Thanksgiving week. I get the week off for Thanksgiving, so I spend basically 7 or 8 days on the water. I don't.
Wow, great.
Yeah, basically all in a row. Camp out there, whatever it may be. I stay out there and I just look and I find and I dial as much as I possibly can to find those fish. And so in those 8 days, I essentially narrowed the areas where I wanted to be at to put myself in the best chance of catching one. And then at the same time, in those 8 days, I must have had 10 or 15 fish that were over 10 pounds that didn't want to bite. They were short strike. And so that happened. And I called some friends. We were just going to go out there, just go fun fish, just hang out. All tournament guys that we fished together with. And it was the end of the season. Let's go hang out.
Yeah, just hanging out fishing.
Yeah, exactly. Stay away from the tournaments for a while and let's just have a good time today.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the buddies that we were fishing with that day, his name's Joseph. He was pouring his own minnow style baits. They're essentially, they look like sakamaras.
Yeah.
I just don't know what copyright issue is on that. It's a minnow style bait. It's a 6-inch minnow style bait. And so he gave me one to fish because he caught a couple fish on it. I never fished. I have fished it. I never had success with a 6-inch minnow or bigger. So he gave me one and I was like, okay, well, I'll go and have fun with it. Just go fish. And I was looking around, panning around, throwing around at fish, and then I saw the one and I made the cast to it, and it just came up and ate it. That's kind of it sounds anticlimactic, but it happened that way.
But you did a lot of work to put yourself in position to be there, knowing that quality fish.
Yeah, and so what I have found, I think, to kind of put the story in a better perspective, is the lake was still in the process of turning over. They had drawn down the lake, and so every year when they draw down the lake, that lake specifically, because it doesn't hold a lot of water, every time we get the sun, with the mild winter that we've been having, the temps you'll probably be jealous of this, but the temps have been above the 50s for our entire winter, just about. Very minimal days in the 50s, very minimal days in the 40s. And so every time the sun would hit the surface of the lake, there would be an algae bloom in the winter, just because the lake level is so low and it hasn't completely finished turning over. And so those were kind of the conditions. The fish were all set up in the ditches, around the ditches, in the ditches, creek channels. They weren't, none of the fish were on structure themselves. And so that's to set the scene of where the fish were.
So you had a lot of suspended fish or fish on the near the bottom.
Yeah. And it's tough fishing. I mean, a good day out there during that time period was if you caught 2 fish.
Really?
So, yeah. And so if anybody had caught 2, if anybody filled a limit, you were a superstar.
Superstar that day.
Say it. Yeah.
Like you're KVD reborn, right?
Yeah.
So got that. Did you have any idea that is going to be that big? You were going to be over 15 pounds as soon as you set the hook. You had to think, oh my God, what have I got?
Yeah. So it was, I had bought a new rod the day before, the Wednesday before going out there on that specific day.
Okay, I'm going to make a note. Buying new rods leads to good luck. I'm going to make sure my wife watches this episode.
Well, to make it even worse, I bought an NRX.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. So I wasn't sure because it was the first fish I actually hooked on the rod. I wasn't quite sure on how big it was.
Okay.
Kind of deal. And so, with my older gear, I can kind of have a feel of the weight of the fish, but I knew it was over 10, just the way that it was fighting. The size of the return, the way that it was fighting, many 10s before that. And so that's kind of where I got the rough gauge of it. It was anywhere 9 plus, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, first moment I knew that it was over 10 was when they came up and it did a wallow. It swallowed.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw the head on it. I was okay. Well, it has the head of a 10-pound.
That's
yeah. And so, after that, just go through mechanics, make sure everything's good, straight. And then I lipped it, and that was the end of the story for there.
Oh, nice. And how long was that thing? Were you able to put it on board?
Yeah, so it was 27 inches.
20?
Yeah. I had some photos where it was like 26 3/4.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really make sure that on the good pictures, I didn't really mess with the tail to get it, extend as long as possible.
Yeah. You weren't in tournament play anyway, right? So
no. So it was more so if I want to throw on the board, get its mouth closed just so that, it's as close to closed as possible and then just take a picture of it. I don't want to mess with the extra 1/4 inch.
Yeah, that'd be asinine of that be. Yeah, it's only 26 3/4 inches.
Yeah, exactly.
So in your tournaments that you fished there, I mean, how big with the different growing season and everything else and different bodies of water, is there like for us, there's like 20 inches. If we catch a 20-inch fish, that is a hell of a fish in our waters, right? Mm-hmm. 20 or above is a big deal. I think I've only caught one 20-inch fish in tournament play. And then some guys have got dozens. So kind of what is your, oh man, that's a nice one size for the California waters you're fishing?
For California waters, I would say about a 21.
Yeah.
It kind of depends on the lake as well.
Sure.
Yeah. Because we also have, the Alabama spotted bass. So.
Okay.
Yeah. Some of our lakes are riddled with the 15, 14, 15 inchers. And so on those lakes, a really good fish would be like an 18 incher. Yeah. Because an 18 incher would go a really long ways when you're catching a bunch of fish.
If you have an 18, if several 18s, and you're going to be hard to beat. You got a limit.
Yeah. And then, you have special places like out here, like Clear Lake, where you basically need a 20 to start. And then you need like a 22 or a 23 to really, really push you over the edge. We had West Coast Championship, which is kind of like our kayak championship classic for the West Coast kind of deal. Multiple states combined together, and we have a big tournament. better buy-in, qualified anglers that qualify through the approved trails to basically get into fish. And every year that happens on Clear Lake. And it takes an average of 100 inches to really win it. So
an average of 100 inches. That's, geez.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah. Are there any other catches, big or little, that catch out in your mind, or just stand out in your mind?
Throughout my career, I mean, that one sticks out. I don't know if you can see that plaque.
I see some plaques back there, but
yeah, that's native no limit power hour big bass.
Nice. That paid well. Yeah.
It did.
Yeah.
And so, first ever native event I ever fished, that was pre live scope, before I ever had live scope. And so, it was on a spotted bass heavy lake. A lot of guys were catching fish, but on that specific event, there's a 14-inch minimum. And so a lot of guys couldn't get 14 inchers.
Okay.
Yeah. And so that was a 24-incher. It went a very, very long ways for me.
Yeah. I bet. Oh, wow. Now, I haven't fished one of those before. Isn't that the every hour they have? Is it the every hour you have big bass of every hour? That's the only payout. Nothing else really matters. I mean, so your 5 doesn't matter.
So it's every fish counts for placement. So essentially, catch as many as you can for the duration of the tournament, and then whoever has the most inches wins. Kind of like MLF style, you could say.
Okay.
And then your overall big fish for the entire duration of the tournament, and then also every hourly big fish. So you could so you could win an hour with a 18-incher if nobody else catches anything bigger than 18 inches for that hour 7 or hour 5. So
yeah, I talked to some other guys that have been to those. They just love them.
Yeah, it's an awesome format. Honestly, you get a lot of guys that don't typically tournament fish come out and fish them simply because you don't have to be the best tournament angler. You could just, quite frankly, get lucky and catch a really good check.
Oh yeah,
so there's a lot of incentives to fish it.
Yeah, you got quite a few trophies there sitting behind you, so you're doing something right. So you sounds like one of the things I was really excited about this interview after you replied to my message, something like, hey, I'm fishing. I got this window of time I can do it in. So I was like, that dude is a dedicated angler. So I thought that was awesome. So you spend a lot of time in your kayak. What type of rig do you have yourself?
So I run a NuCanoe Unlimited.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Yeah, I got it, I believe, like the year after they release it. So 2022, 2021-ish.
Those are very popular around us too.
Yeah, it's a great kayak. I run a bow mount. I also have a stern mount for when I want to power fish. I want to fish the delta, cover a lot of water. Typically, I'm on the bow mount most of the time with just the one Garmin screen and a live scope pole. Transducer, everything's very, very bare minimalist. I don't really trick it out too crazy. I don't have any. If somebody wanted to open my electrical box, it would look like a nightmare in there. It would look like a bird's nest in there.
It works.
It's not clean by any means. It just works.
It's meant to function, right? That'd be pretty. Yeah, that's a heck of a kayak. And then I seen they just released the bigger version of that thing, which is like 13 and a half feet or something. I'm sure that'll be popular too. Now you mentioned you'll run one screen that's with your live scope, so you just use that one screen with your live scope.
Yeah. So I had contemplating upgrading to one screen. In the tournament years prior, I did run 2 screens. I ran mapping and side scan on one screen, and then I ran live scope on one screen.
Yeah.
Simply because with side scan, every now and then I can catch information that I don't catch on live scope because the live scope I'm more pointed forward and I'm looking at what's ahead of me, whereas the side scan will catch something that I miss on the sides sometimes. I've downgraded simply because I didn't really see the need to have 2 screens, and I'm considering getting rid of both and just going with one bigger screen. So, yeah.
I could see the advantage in that. Yeah, there's only, we are in kayaks. There's only a limited amount of space, and the more stuff you put in there just makes it more difficult to move around and load and unload. Do you usually you have to trailer the unlimited, or?
Yeah, so the first year I started tournament fishing, I didn't. have a trailer. I was fortunate enough to get enough earnings to buy a trailer.
That's awesome. Yeah.
So I got a trailer after that first year of tournament fishing, and I haven't looked back since. It's been wonderful.
Nice.
Yeah.
So if somebody's watching this and they're just thinking, and maybe they're, maybe they're in Midwest, maybe on the West Coast, heck, maybe they're on the East Coast, but if they're just thinking about getting involved in kayak angling or kayak bass fishing, if you had just a couple of pieces of advice for them, can you think of what that might be?
I would say first, I would really look at the clubs, get into a good club.
Great advice.
Club. There's a lot of good clubs, and there's also a lot of bad clubs. I think that's pretty normal.
Mm-hmm.
I would look for a good club first and ask around. The kayak community is very friendly. You don't have to feel like an outsider. If you want to know something about kayak competing wise, anybody that competes in the kayak side will gladly give you information on what trails to fish, what's a reputable trail, what's a trail that will pay out once the event is over. So
yeah, that's helpful. Yeah.
That's where I would start. I would start by figuring out the clubs, and then on the kayak side, don't worry too much about the electronics. Honestly, the internet's blowing up electronics much more than what it really is. At the end of the day, it's fishing. It's you against the fish. Live scope helps, yes, but it doesn't mean that you cannot win without live scope. There's plenty of guys that win fishing, cash checks, fishing without live scope. It's a very nice tool to have, but you don't need it to start your early beginning stages of competing in a kayak tournament. You don't need to get live scope. You need to.
Yeah. That is so true. Our little tournament trail last 2 years, Angler of the Year, it's the same guy that's won it the last 2 years, has very minimalist stuff on his kayak. It's a small graph, no live scope, anything like that, and just whoops people most of the time. As a matter of fact, I know we had one dominant angler that was Angler of the Year a couple of years. He got live scope and got a motor, and it kind of set him back. There's a big learning curve there.
Yeah. So to the new kayak angler, don't be discouraged. Just ask around. Go to your kayak shop. If you have a local kayak shop, go see what tournament trails there are at the local kayak shop, and go from there. Reach out to them on Facebook. There's so many kayak clubs on Facebook that you could connect with.
Yeah.
Ask first before you just jump in.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Well, Max, I want to be respectful of your time, but if as we wrap this up, is there any social media outlets that you want to plug that you are using, or people can watch some of your exploits or anything like that?
Yeah, if anybody wishes to follow me, I'm on Facebook. I don't know what my Facebook tag is, as in what the username is, but
I found it just Googling, just looking for Max Lee in California. So that your profile photo's got a kayak on it. I'm like, yep, that's my guy.
Yeah, and so that's what I was going to refer to. Is if you just Googled it, I was in a very fortunate position to where if you just Google me, you'll be able to find me. So if anybody wishes to find me, I'll be on Google.
Oh, there you go. Just look me up. Not many Max Lees in California fishing bass out of kayak. Yeah. So this has been really good. I really enjoyed talking to you about your perspective and what's going on actually where the water is still actually liquid instead of hard like it is where I'm at right now. So that's good to hear. And it's stricken me, your comments, Max, over our conversation, and how similar, the fish are basically the same. Yours may be a little different. The climate may be a little different. But many of the things you've talked about just echoes some same things that we see here in Illinois and in the Midwest.
Bass fishing is bass fishing.
Yeah.
It may change per body of water, but bass fishing is bass fishing. And you just got to figure out how to get them to bite.
So, yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Well, Max, thanks again. I really appreciate you again answering my call to come on the podcast. I've really enjoyed meeting you and hearing more about your experience. So thank you, and I wish you nothing but great fishing in the future, my friend.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.